In this video, I'm going to be talking about iRacing's content problem, a problem that has been getting worse over the years and especially bad over the last 2 updates that have occurred. If you enjoy sim racing content, sim racing talk, and a mild sense of despair, then why not subscribe to this channel so you're kept up to date with our pointless videos, or click the like button if you particularly enjoyed this video. So what is iRacing's content problem? Well, simply put, is that iRacing keeps adding more cars and tracks to the simulator. The problem with that, although on the face of it it would sound good because, well, more cars, more things to do, more fun, the problem with that is that the cars that they keep adding end up dividing the user base from the existing content that's on there. So if you've never played iRacing, the way it typically works is that you have each car is generally for a specific series, apart from some cars that are multi-class cars. So you will have like a GT3 and you might have like an LMP2 with that and another car. So you do get some cars that have crossover, but a lot of the time you have one car per series that runs. Now, the issue occurs when you have series that are not particularly popular and similar in terms of the car to another series. What happens is the more cars you add, the more series you add, the more you're thinning the player base between those series. And unfortunately, the last 2 updates have been particularly bad, and what's really strange is the content choices, or the type of cars that iRacing decides to add, where the cars added conflict really or take away from existing series because the cars are too similar to what's already on the service. So for example, the new Formula Ford, which I actually think is the best car in the simulator, it certainly seems like the most realistic car from my very limited experience. The new Formula Ford car, although being great, has absolutely pillaged drivers from the Skip Barber series. So much so most people have moved from Skip Barber to Formula Ford. And the Skip Barber is actually a really, really fun car to drive, but now there's certain times of day where, since having the Formula Ford added, you barely get a single split in Skip Barber, whereas in the past, 2 patches ago before the Formula Ford, you would pretty much always get 2 or 3 splits minimum with the Skip Barber. You now have, with the latest update, the introduction of a LMP3 car, which runs a mixed class thing with GT4, but also a fixed series. And what this LMP3 car's done is, bizarrely, actually ended up taking away drivers from the Formula Ford, which was added the update before this recent one, and drivers away from the F4, and then it's also diluted drivers again from slower series like the original Skip Barber, and then stuff like the MX-5, and ironically the GR Cup, which was also added, the Toyota GR86, which was also added the update before last. The LMP3 car is also bizarrely similar. It's quite similar to a GT3 car in terms of spec and speed, and also it's very similar in many ways to the Radical SR10. So it's also pillaged drivers from that. The SR10, which they added in last update, the update before this one, sorry about the confusing thing of saying when it was updated, but the SR10 replaced the RX8 or the SR8. The SR8 was a free car, and that car actually drove way better than the SR10. The SR10 bizarrely drives pretty much like a GT3 car in many ways. It's not, it's not identical to a GT3 car, but it's, with the fixed setup that this runs with the Radical series, the SR10 is like a super understeery, tankish GT3 car that's a little bit more responsive and a little bit more bitey with downforce, though massively understeering because of the setup and because of the fact they've gone for an SR10. So the SR10 then diluted things, but it also killed off what was a really, really popular series with the RX-8. I think it's RX-8, as I say. The RX-8 was two or three updates ago. The RX-8 was really, really fun. Not particularly realistic car necessarily, but a really, really fun car to drive, and nothing else on the service drove like it at all. Whereas they added the SR10, which you had to buy, replaced the RX-8, and you had another car that's again like a sort of GT3 ballpark vehicle. So they keep doing this. They keep adding more and more cars, which is diluting the user base and making it harder and harder for you to actually be likely to get good close racing, which is the crux of the iRacing service. Now, what's really weird is, as I say, this obsession of car that's sort of vaguely in the GT3 spec of vehicle. That's particularly weird to have loads of cars like that when they already have like an F2 car, which is really ancient, that really needs updating, which would stand out on its own as different from lots of vehicles and would be probably quite interesting participation. But it's, you know, they've got an F2 there, but it's really old. But they could have just updated it with an updated F2. It would make sense. It would stand out. But they also have an F3 car on here, which is absolutely ancient. It drifts around weirdly, apart from when the grip just turns off. But it's quite a popular car. Makes sense as it's a different car again from other cars existing on the service. But they've never updated that or replaced it. So they keep adding these random cars, which I get with the LMP3. I get it. I see where that fits in with certain other series in it. I see how anything can fit in with racing now, but they're adding stuff that from a raw gameplay perspective is already actually covered in many ways, and then is just taken away from what's already there and just diluting everything. So I get it. iRacing probably makes a lot of money, like any simulator does, by adding content that people inevitably buy to try out or just to race. And people, when they do like a new car, people buy it for the novelty factor, and then inevitably they actually go back a lot of the times after a month or so, halfway through the season, they go back to whatever's tried and tested. Some things do stick, but most things kind of people push to one side eventually, and it goes then into the sort of bucket of cars and series that are barely raced. I get it though. I get doing this content to make more money, but honestly, it really is actually becoming quite a problem with iRacing. And if you drive at certain times when there's less participation, for those of us in Europe, if you're on the sort of 12 midday to 9 p.m, you're probably, in a lot of the series, you're at least going to have a split, normally two splits. But if you're outside of that window, when you're sort of in some of the American time zones or Australian time zones, it's got worse and worse. And with me having stupid insomnia and just being an idiot, I play 24 hours all over the place, so I really notice when things are active and not active. You really do notice now that those certain time zones are very dead with certain series, which is a bit of a problem, because the USP of iRacing over any other simulator is being able to get a race at any time of day, and ideally racing someone of a similar skill level to yourself. And for that to happen, for that ranking system to work, really you need a series that has absolute minimum 3 splits of sort of 20 cars. Anything less than that, and it's really unlikely that you're going to be finding 2 or 3 people in a race that you happen to do that then match your pace and skill. Especially if you get to the sort of 3k plus I rating, where you're going to be in the top split. Most series 2.5k I rating will put you in the top split. But if you get to 3+ k I rating, you're going to be in the top split. And if there's only 2 splits, you're literally only going to have 2 or 3 drivers at a similar pace to you at any given race that you're doing. So, I mean, what's the solution though? I would say the solution is for iRacing to stop putting cars in that are very similar to existing cars. If they do add cars, that are similar, it would make sense for them to just add more GT3 cars, because you could fill up the GT3 grid, or add more GT4 cars because you can fill up the GT4 grid. It compacts them into the same series, so it doesn't really dilute or affect things because people are still going into the same race. Or if they do add cars, which granted, in fairness, with the LMP3 car they've done this a bit, if you are adding like LMP3, then it goes into race with GT4. If you add more Formula cars, you find some kind of way to bop cars or road cars so you can put them in the same thing. So it's not even multi-split or multi-class rather. It's bopped different vehicles in the same thing. But then that also has issues, and that's hard to balance. But yeah, it's just they really need to be careful, I think. I just really wonder what they're doing. Also, if you're coming to iRacing now as a new user, it's so bloody confusing. Like, there's not really a very defined progression. It would almost make sense to actually remove a bunch of stuff, like the USF 2000, which used to be very active, but was basically killed by the F4 car. The F4 car is actually better than the USF and is basically exactly the same, but they still race the USF. I don't know why. I do know why, because the USF is also still running on oval, and it's sometimes on road, so it's then not an oval car, but then nobody races it anyway. But like, if you've got a car that's old, if you do replace it with a new car like the F4 car for the USF, the F4 car is a good replacement. The F4 car is genuinely better. Just bin the old cars. Get rid of them. You've just got to get rid of them, because it's going to be better for people to actually have stuff to race. But in the case of like the Radical, you have to have something completely wrong with you if you honestly think the SR10 was a good replacement for to get rid of the SR8 for the SR10, a paid car that then actually got rid of a better free car. Also, what's really weird with the SR10, I'll get this out of my system here, is in real life the SR10 is, from my understanding, designed as more of a track day car. They do race it as well, but it's got faster straight line speed. It's less nimble than the SR3, for example, or other variants of the Radical, and it's got a longer engine runtime, so it's more cost effective, better in a straight line, not as good through corners, a little bit calmer than the SR3, so people that do track days that don't want to be balancing and wrestling the car so much could enjoy the straight line speed more. It's completely nonsensical that they went for the SR10. If they were going to replace the SR8, either replace it with a new version of the SR8 or put the SR3 XXR in the sim, which is genuinely used for racing in real life and is one of the most popular, most cost-effective sort of prototype race series internationally. The SR10 just made no sense at all. So this is the other thing, is they add cars that literally are completely nonsensical that then kill good content. So, iRacing's content problem. They're adding too many cars, they're adding too many cars that are similar, and they are either not removing old stuff when they should, or they are removing old stuff when they shouldn't. Now, I know, obviously, iRacing can't make everyone happy, but the fact of the matter is, if you play iRacing a lot, which unfortunately I do enjoy iRacing. It's very entertaining. You can have a lot of fun with it. It's a bit expensive and it's a bit silly and it's not the most realistic. I have a lot of fun with it. But the fact is, the game design behind iRacing and their choices of content and anything related to games design, it's bafflingly incomprehensible. This could be so much better. They could still be making lots of money. I don't know why they make these really ridiculous choices. So that's the content problem. Maybe I'm being mental, maybe I'm being totally unreasonable. If you think so, let me know in the comments section how unreasonably mental I am. I'm sure we'll get some delightful comments, but that's it. I just had to get this out of my system to make me feel better. I am currently, right this second, well, not right this second, but right this moment, we just finished a 15-hour live stream, and I thought, why not make a video after doing that? What's another few hours? We're doing I'm trying to get 2,000 iRating in 4 days. We've got 500 today. We should be able to get 1,000 tomorrow, if I wake up, which I probably won't. I've probably got deep vein thrombosis. But join us on Twitch if you want to catch that. As I say, you can subscribe here if you like this kind of content. But that's it. Until the next video, hopefully the next one's a bit more coherent. Thank you for watching. Happy tea drinking, everyone. Take care and goodbye.